Okay, I'll call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The first item is the minutes of this committee's meeting held Monday, March 22nd. The recommendation is to approve those minutes.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Next item concerns Coquitlam Local Bus Transit Service Review. There's a series of bullets that staff be directed to forward the review to various bodies. That TransLink and Coast Mountain initiate an immediate review of local bus service routing and coverage identified in the report and implement them by the fall. Direct staff to coordinate and convene a meeting with respective committees of Port Coquitlam and Port Moody to discuss and address broader transit issues in the area. And finally, that staff report back to the outcome of the service review by TransLink and Coast Mountain Bus Company and the progress of these meetings. We have brief introductory comments by Mr. Paul Lee.
Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The review of local bus coverage and the level of service is long overdue. We believe that back in 2005, when we're planning for the LRT version of our rapid transit, TransLink was reticent in conducting a review of the existing services and so on because they want to do a bus integration plan off the LRT. And as you know, the LRT was delayed, and now we're currently in the SkyTrain rapid transit mode. We're met with the same resistance to look at these local bus routes. It is important that we look after our residents' interest to make sure that the routes are serving at least in the southwest part of Coquitlam, making sure that there's good connection for the residents to reach areas of interest in commercial areas down at the Lougheed area, the Schoolhouse area, and the Pacific Reach area. So these three routes that staff have come up with merely is to look at a situation that's not directly impacted by the Evergreen design, but there should be further work coming if the liaison with Port Moody and Port Coquitlam will bear some fruit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councillor Robinson.
I have questions. Surprise, surprise. I'm pleased to see the report. I have just a couple of questions some are technical. What is the annual bus seat in kilometers, like calculation?
Through the chair, that is a calculation that you don't see it in TransLink's publications. It's a parameter that staff had researched, and we combine buses. Most of the time, TransLink would tell you how many bus hours they provide for the community. Bus hour as a total, as an absolute total, or per capita. And when we sort of drill down into the information, we find that we do have a large fleet of community shuttles, which are small buses. So that 1 hour of a small bus does not equate to a 1 hour of a 40-footer, a large bus, or an articulated bus. So this is why we broke it down to show some of the inequities that we're getting.
Because what I noticed here, I'm wondering, can we put the transit service level indicators, attachment 1, on the overhead?
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to sort of speak to some of these numbers, because to me that's what's telling. And when I come back to thinking about indicators, right, if this is our baseline that we get from TransLink, and we want to be able to, 5 years from now, see if we're getting better service, I think these are the numbers that we can go back to them and say, great, you've done a bang-up job, we're getting more service, or excuse me, but nothing's changed, or not enough has changed. So this annual bus seat kilometers, we have 153 million, is that what? Bus seat kilometers?
Yeah,
am I reading that right?
The annual bus seat is 153 million, yeah.
And Richmond is 308, Surrey 378, and Burnaby New West 412.
Yeah, but the better indicator through the chair is the second one from the bottom. What I was wondering.
So it's the per capita that we ought to be paying attention.
It's the per capita, yeah. And that's telling. You can tell we're below Burnaby, we're below our neighbor in New West.
But not below Surrey.
Yeah, and Richmond.
So, okay, thank you. I just wanted to, so that one's calculated by how many people how many bums in seats per kilometer?
Bums, yeah.
Right, okay, we're counting bums. The other question I have, which is more the political question, what's the likelihood that TransLink will respond to this report?
Staff will certainly press this through all the available channels that we have through the Major Road Network MR-TAC, which is the Technical Advisory Committee. We have fairly good liaison with the Coast Mountain Bus Company at this point, which is the operating arm of TransLink. But we certainly will like to forward this report to TransLink's attention and ask for a response.
So will we, I'm just thinking about timing and influence, will we be talking to our counterparts in Port Moody and Port Coquitlam first, sharing this report? Because I'm wondering if there's strength in numbers and strength in number of communities, that if they have the same concerns?
Through the chair, I think the preferred strategy at this point is to forward this information to TransLink as quickly as possible, because both Route 153 and 157 are fairly self-contained.
Okay.
It is in southwest Coquitlam.
That's fine.
And I think, we want to move this ahead.
So there's some real direct requests for particular routes, and then there's the bigger issue of better service. I have one more question, but I see that Mr. Sousa.
Just on the same issue, Mr. Chair, staff could have a letter, if committee so desired, we could certainly elevate this to the board level, that is, have the mayor sign a cover letter that informs the board and lets the board know how serious this matter is. Of course, all of the work will occur at the staff level, but it may be prudent to have the mayor sign a cover letter of this report to the board and show some emphasis in that regard.
That was actually my next question.
Well, I think it's, Mr. Lee, we're looking at two parts. We're looking at, one, what Coquitlam can do for itself on its internal bus routing, and that's our issue. The other issue is I've talked with the mayors of Port Coquitlam and Port Moody about convening the chairs of their respective committees that cover transportation and staff to meet on the routes that interconnect. That's why on the last bus route shows going through Pine Tree, David Avenue, down Coast Meridian, but once it gets into Port Coquitlam, we won't make any comments because that's Port Coquitlam. So we are going to move ahead with the two routes that are internal to Coquitlam. So it's a two-part. We are going to work on what's ours, and then we are going to also work together on the routes that flow through the municipality.
Okay, so my concern is not about the routes level. I mean, I think that staff and sort of have identified what needs to happen, and I think that makes perfect sense. It's more the transit service level indicators, and I think that we need to, have something written on behalf of our mayor who sits at TransLink, at that committee, because I mean, Surrey's in a worse off position, and I think that dialogue needs to happen about how do we, those of us who are underserved, how are we going to advocate to make sure that we get better service? At the earlier meeting, we looked at the greenhouse gas strategy, and unless we get better transit, we're not going to meet our targets. These pieces are all interconnected, and I think there's a piece here that has to happen at the political level, and I want to make sure that we use all of our resources to get these numbers changed.
Thank you very much. Just my comments on this is I think this is a good report by staff. It's moving in the direction I think that we want to take the initiative in Coquitlam at saying to transit, TransLink, Coast Mountain, what we see as the needs and the improvements in our community for our residents and our transit services. The idea of the 157 change is to better connect the people on the south slope into the shopping areas from Como Lake, the recreation center and the school at Centennial, down to the Austin Heights area, down to Schoolhouse along the entertainment and shopping area where you have the bowling alleys, the theaters, and then along Woolridge for the big box retail, Winners, IKEA, and through in. So this gives people on the south slope the ability to connect by bus, because presently right now you get down to Brunette and you can't get an access to anything. So what we're looking at is saying to transit, TransLink, these are what we see as the needed improvements. Will Coast Mountain come back and say yes or no? We'll find out and we'll work with this. A lot of cities in the region, Vancouver and everything, advocate on a regular basis for transit improvements in their areas and what they see as their needed transit improvements. And so I think staff has done a good job on this. I think it's the first step in moving forward, taking more ownership of the service and the type of service that's delivered to people in Coquitlam and the Tri-City areas. Both mayors that I spoke briefly at the Metro Board meeting of Port Coquitlam and Port Moody both expressed the interest of working together on the broader issues of routes, working in between us to improve our city and working together to leverage more, as I think Councillor Robbins was saying, in that area, and that's what we are going to do. So it's the first step. I appreciate staff. It's a very well put together report, and I thank you for that. And I don't think we'll see any changes. If it was to happen at the earliest, it would be September for the way transit, more than likely January next year. That's the timing process. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you. What's the plan for reporting back to us on sort of what changes happen? Sort of, is this a kind of, I'm actually thinking about the transit service level indicators, like not the specific routes in general, but the broad-based, we're going to get more bums in seats kilometer per capita sort of thing. Is it reasonable to sort of report out every couple of years to do this, to run these numbers, or every 3 years, or?
Paul? Yeah. Bill?
Sure. Mr. Chair, we think that should be done on an annual basis. TransLink publishes numbers every year. We should put that in front of you as we get the information.
Good idea.
That would be great, because I think this is about holding us all accountable, and I think this is a good way for us to measure our success at getting better transit in our community. Thank you.
And hopefully, as Councillor Robinson said, that with these improved routing and stuff, we will once again get more people taking transit, reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. I've said before, and I'll mention it again today just for people to understand that while we're promoting this and trying to improve our service levels, there's a study being done by TransLink right now about looking at low-volume routes and either reducing the midday service after 9 that would mean suburban areas would be probably the hit due to servicing pass-ups in areas such as Vancouver. But you have to once look at it in a context. If you take the 99B line in rush hour service, runs every 2 minutes. If you miss the first 3 ones, the next one comes by, that's 8 minutes. Where we have the best service here is 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So if we're going to achieve these goals, we can't be cutting back. We've got to be moving forward to achieve the goals that we want of reduced greenhouse gases and better mobility for people in our region.
That's what I'm going to get Lou a bike.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Being none, is it moved and seconded?
It has not been moved
I'll
and
move
seconded.
it.
Seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next report concerns the Strategic Transportation Plan update and its proposed public advisory group members. The 2 recommendations are that Council appoint the persons or groups identified in the attachment A to the report, and secondly, that staff be directed to engage the community associations identified in attachment B. The General Manager of Engineering and Public Works has a few brief introductory comments.
Mr. Suzak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is coming back to committee after some discussion last time. There was some concern about balancing the numbers with ensuring that there was effective reach out. You will notice that the actual committee members have gone from 18 down to just 15. We've slightly tweaked that, but we feel we found a way to ensure that broadly the community is kept completely informed of all of the activities of this plan. For example, we intend to have mail-outs go to all community associations, keep them informed, and certainly they're invited to attend as meetings occur. We hope we've struck the balance. Thank you.
Councillor Sikora, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I'm still concerned with the amount of people on that committee. I've always been leery of committees that are running 15, 18, 20, 24. I really am. I think the committee of about 8 or 10 should be plenty enough. But however, I'll go along with this one, but probably half of them will not show up to the meetings anyway.
Well, thank you. We did reduce it from its previous number, so we did bring it down a bit. So I'm happy with that.
Which is great.
Yeah. Councillor Robinson.
I actually think a committee of 15 is fine when you have a skilled facilitator, so I have no qualms with that. I'm also pleased to see how well staff were able to take our feedback in terms of the community association list and to find a way to incorporate them at some level, and that's the part that I think deserves some kudos. I think it's the broader the broader the scope for receiving input, the stronger our plan will be. I think that's just a given, and I think you've struck a balance between Councillor Sikora's concern about too many people and making sure that people can bring their voice forward. So I thank staff very much for taking our feedback in and finding a way to make it work.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item, please.
Next item is a local area service at Tide Place. The staff recommendations that council direct staff to proceed with the local area service on Tide Place, which involves curb and gutter, and notify the property owners of this work.
You have a
So moved.
The recommendation.
second?
Second.
Questions, comments? No. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried.
That's the last formal item on the agenda.
Move adjournment?
No.
Oh, once.
We wanted to talk about cycling route. We get some direction.
Okay. Under new business, Councillor Robinson would like to bring up.
Thank you. This idea of cycling, given that we have to wait forever for transit, hopefully we won't have to wait too long, and greenhouse gas emissions, I'd like this committee to recommend to staff the idea of developing a cross-town cycling route and take a look at signing it and identifying it and promoting it, and as well as taking a look at signage for the southwest cycling routes that we have designated in our maps, but we certainly haven't signed yet, and reporting back to this committee about what it would cost and if that's feasible. So I move that we give staff direction.
Seconded?
Yeah.
Second. That's good. And staff will work that in when they can on their work plan at present. Okay?
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. Now, somebody move adjournment?
I'll move.
Second. All those in favor? We're out of here. Thank you, folks.
That was